everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happening? You guys know who it is. This is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast, but the MSOTD rocks with rock and metal thrive. Happy Thursday, everybody. It is November 17th? Yeah, so no, 18th? Shit, I don't remember. 19th. Yeah, 19th. Man, I'm losing track of my days, but we got a great episode for you today because this guy reached out to me on Instagram asking if he could be on the show because he likes the show and wants to, promote his band. And I'm like, okay, you got new music coming out. Let's take a listen to it. He sent me the music. I'm like, oh yeah, let's do this. So again, we go deep into their newest song called Runaway. We also talk about the anatomy of being a frontman and all it takes to do that. And also talk about using different vocal languages, actually different vocal styles to really amplify your music and why English is, again, the predominant language in something like rock and metal and why it really works. So please welcome to the show Tico from the band the Nerval for one incredible conversation. Are you guys ready? Because I sure as hell am. So let's go. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. My DMs were lighting up from this guy saying, hey, check out our new music. Love the podcast, and we'll see if we can get something going. And I listen to the music. I'm just like, yeah, let's make this happen, man. Let's go for this. Plus, he's from a place where, honestly, some of the best music I've heard comes from bands like Rise Against, Disturbed, and Chevelle from Chicago, Illinois. 90 miles south of me. Got good music. Don't care for their sports, being from Milwaukee, but that's just me. So please welcome from the band Nerval, Tico. So Tico, welcome to Chord Progression Podcast.
What's up, brother? Really stoked to be here. It's a pleasure to talk to you about music, and I've been like a follower of your podcast. Love to, listen to all the interviews and everything, all the crazy stories from people. So I'm really stoked to be here, man.
All right, now that gets me excited that you really listen to it. I'm just like, yeah, someone's listening to it. Woo! And just like, I'm going to throw my hands up in the air, yeah. Well, we're going to start this out the way I love to start out all these podcasts. And Tico, if you've been watching, you definitely know how I start these out, where I want you to introduce yourself with your name, the band name, what you do in the band, and of course, a fun fact about yourself. But it has to be the wackiest thing you can think of. I mean, if you can top the craziest things of like becoming a substitute teacher in order to subsidize working in a band, if you can top being the top YouTuber in Sweden before PewDiePie was a thing, if you want to read your Tinder bio, which is always like my gold standard on this, because that was hilarious when the band Broken Youth did that.
Right.
Go for it. I want to see if you can top that. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, man. So, as you said it, my name is Tico. That's my stage name, actually. My real name is Tiago, but like everybody calls me Tico, so it's just a thing. I currently play guitar and sing in the Nerval, which is the band that I started a couple of years ago here in Chicago, 2013. During this time, I went to Brazil and I lived there for a couple of years. The band kind of, recorded things in Portuguese, so we recorded an EP in Portuguese. Which was pretty cool. That's where I'm from originally, Brazil. And then I came back to the States, and now we're just like creating this stuff, man. And we're about to release some really good music this next month. And I don't know if I can just like go and do the fun fact thing.
I want to hear the fun fact thing. Go into it, man.
Yeah, let me think. I mean, I think I'm just gonna go with the basic like Tinder / like Bumble profile, I guess.
Yes, let's go.
I mean, I'm not active on like those apps anymore. But I remember that I had like my Tinder one. I don't like Tinder anymore, but anyway, it was 6 foot of interesting stuff, right? Because I'm 6 foot tall. Like, this can go over. There's a lot about me, so that was the fun fact from my Bumble profile, not Tinder.
Yeah, I got rid of all those. I just kind of got sick and tired of them and just the way life had gone. But my go-to, like for one of them was, I'm just here so I don't get fined. Like I totally to the whole Marshawn Lynch Super Bowl thing. But then the best one I ever came up with was, I just put in there, this is all it said. A blind woman once told me that I look like her son. So I got that going for me.
That's a funny one, dude. Yeah, and I saw one from a guy when I was in there, which was pretty funny, which was pretty much, he was like, if you don't look like the pictures, you're paying for the drinks.
Ooh.
I like that one.
That is
Yeah,
good.
that's, it's just like, yeah, man, got some balls.
You got some balls, but the
Right.
fact of the matter is, like, the people that don't look like the people, like that look like what they are in their pictures, they're
Mhm.
not gonna talk to them, they're not gonna show up or anything. But the people that do, it's like, well, they got nothing to worry about because they know they're gonna get free drinks out of it because he's gonna be the one paying for it. So he's kind
Yep.
of setting himself up for success because I mean, naturally, it's like you go out to a bar, it's just like, okay, you go out with a date. Naturally, as guys, we're gonna be the ones that end up paying anyway, especially for the first one because
Yeah.
that's just kind of how it is. I kind of roll with that the same way, so.
Yeah, there you go.
So it makes
That
sense,
one,
but
that one stuck with me because I thought it was pretty funny and like creative, right?
it is, and I'm glad I got another Tinder slash Bumble slash whatever
Yeah,
dating
man, you
profile
got
bio
it.
because those are
Don't
all
look for me there anymore. I'm not there anymore, but I was a couple of years ago, I guess. I mean, yeah, a year ago
everyone.
or so.
Everyone was there at one point.
Yeah, at some
Do
point.
not deny it, fans. Do not deny it.
Yeah.
Me getting weird again, but that's always how it happens. So the one thing I will say is like when you're going through the whole entire like history of the band, because I did take a look at the EP and I was like, what language is this in? Because this is definitely not in English, and I was trying to figure out. Cause I'm like, this is in English. I do still understand some Spanish, and this is close, but this just ain't it. And I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
And honestly, I should have guessed Portuguese. I should have.
Yeah, dude, that's definitely Portuguese. Yeah. The thing is, like, I thought, like, when I went back to Brazil, I came here in 2012, to study. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to finish my school, right? I got there, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna write songs in English because, like, like Sepultura did, but they were like envisioning like a career outside of Brazil, pretty much. Um, I was just like, I'm just gonna write songs in Portuguese and see what happens, right? But like here and there, we'd put like some Foo Fighters cover here, or like some other bands here and there. But like I was just like, let's record it in Portuguese and let's just do it, right? So that's what we did. We recorded in Portuguese. But then once I came back to the States, I was like, that's exactly what happened. What happened, like when you tried to like listen to it, I showed it to people and people were like, dude, that's sounds really good, and like I really like the style of the band and all the instrumentals and like the sound and everything, but I don't understand the language. Like I don't know what you're guys saying. Like for me, it's hard like to follow through whatever. Like, yeah, man, you got a point. Now that I'm here, now that I want to like make the band like be a thing here in the US, like of course I'm gonna have to start writing songs in English. So that's how it all started, pretty much.
Yeah, when you take a look at it too, especially what's going on in American culture today, I mean, it's still predominantly where if you're going to be making music and you want to end up really getting that just basically building a fan base here, it's
Right.
got to be in English because that's
Of
what people are going
course.
to understand. However, there is a small sect of Latin American artists that are speaking Spanish, especially more in the pop scene or like the hip hop scene that are
Reggaeton.
yeah, the reggaeton
Definitely.
scene that are really starting to gain traction with that. However, again, it's a small base compared to the larger field that is out there.
Yep. And like if you notice it, they kind of like mix languages. Like they put a little bit of Portuguese and then a little bit of Spanish, and then like like the chorus maybe is like in English. So like they go through the whole like spectrum of people that can listen to it and stuff. Because like if you don't speak English, you're still gonna understand like some word in Spanish here and there. And then if you're an English speaker, you're gonna be like, okay, that's interesting. It's like some cultural like mix in there that I can see. But like definitely not for rock and roll. That's something that I don't think would work.
No, no, I don't think so either. Especially because when it comes to, I'll use pop music example. Use Despacito, which is probably the perfect example, which came out 3 years ago, because they did mix some of that English in there a little bit as well. However, it was like predominantly what really helped it was the fact of that just very catchy Latin inspired beat that it had.
Yeah.
However, and the rhythm and everything and just everything that was constructed around it. However, when you go to rock music, it's so ingrained with more of that. I want to say more of like just a language that has a little bit more of a rougher tone to it. So when you
Yep.
listen to English, it has that rougher tone. And also when you like go, especially over to Europe, you take a look at, I mean, German bands, they really thrive with that. And I think it's just a lot of the dialect that comes out, the way the language is constructed. Eastern European bands really have that because it's just, I think like with the language being a lot more forceful, it really just amplifies and really compares and just complements well with that harder instrumentation that rock and metal have.
Definitely, man. And we look like when you look at the Beatles, like Rolling Stones, and like those are like the foundations, man. Like, and they're all singing in English. And I mean, we try to, like change it to other languages, but I don't know. It just feels like home, when it's in English. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's because of the foundation, like the Beatles, Stones, and all the other bands that came after, that were like that. Pretty much like when you look at the Beatles, like they pretty much set the foundation of like what a rock band is supposed to be, right? Like play stadiums and all that shit, like like have four guys, different instruments, and all of that was like set in stone by them. And it's like, and the language comes with it, in my opinion. Like in when you think about like worldwide, reach, that's what comes to my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and then think about that as well too. It's like building off on that foundation. You go to the '70s and you get more of that hard rock sound, the birth of metal sound with Black Sabbath. You get Led Zeppelin there. You get bands like Rush. So it's just you really have this buildup of this more just rougher sound to rock. But you're gonna get these bands like, I mean, I'll use Led Zeppelin as a perfect example. Like they were playing arenas as well. Then you go to the '80s where you just add a little bit more of that hard rock flair to it, especially with more of the hair metal. But then you also get bands like Iron Maiden, which just really put on like more of that just straight rock kind of show, but just with a lot behind it. You go into the '90s and it just kind of gets a little bit more like that grungy, more that gritty, raw, a little bit more depressed kind of style. But then you take a look at bands that really start like kind of came up over there. Now you're starting to see some bands that have a little bit more of that foreign, like different languages that kind of bring it in there. And the biggest one is probably Rammstein. Because you're just gonna get that German feel in there. But again, with the language being so rough as it is, again, it perfectly complements that metal sound, like especially more that industrial metal sound they had on a song like Du Hast.
Yep, exactly. Not to say that they're not like, if you try to take a look at like Brazilian rock bands, there are some bands there that are pretty freaking huge, man. Because I try to like, when you compare the size of the country, so pretty much like Brazil has like 210 million people. The US has like 350 million at this point, I guess. It's massive, like you can, be a band at scale there. So like there are bands that are freaking huge, man, and they're like, writing songs in Portuguese, and they're adored by their fans. Like some bands I listen to are still, like singing in Portuguese, and they've always sung in Portuguese. But it's like you don't have like this worldwide reach at all. Like you're gonna stay within, play maybe like you're gonna play outside, but then to Brazilian people, right? So there's that.
Yeah, because like some of the Brazilian bands, I've interviewed two Brazilian bands are up to this point so far. One being a band called Hell Garden. They're a thrash metal band. I think they're out of Sao Paulo. Mm-hmm. And then I've interviewed Ego Kill Talent as well.
Yeah.
And that one was just like, I'm taking a listen to their sound too. It's like you can kind of tell a little bit of that like Portuguese, like that Brazilian accent with the Portuguese coming through in the vocals. Mm-hmm. Although they got that like Foo Fighters, Red Hot Chili Peppers kind of flow to them at the same time as well. So I'm like, and when they sing in English, it's like it really adds on to it as well. So I'm like, okay, this really does work. I can see why they're starting to get this bigger reach as well. I can see why when they came out with the Aftershock lineup for 2021, like the headliners were still there, and I was looking to see if any of the bands that I've worked with or talked to were on there, and I saw Ego Kill Talent was on there. I was just like, ooh,
holy
finally.
Shit, yeah. Yeah, man. They're getting traction, definitely. Yeah. I've heard of them as well, but they don't sing in Portuguese, from as far as I know, right? It's only English.
I think maybe they did it like once or twice, but otherwise it's primarily English. And that's just the way it is, because again, the major markets for music, it's also a major market thing, because you take a look at the bigger markets for music, you're gonna get a lot of, like, especially America, you go over to Europe, England's a big one, but then a lot of people in Europe too as well speak English. So It's just that commonality that really works out there. That's not to say
spoken language in the world, man. There's that too, right?
I thought Spanish was the most spoken language in the world.
I don't think so. I think it's English.
Or was it Mandarin Chinese?
Fact check.
We're gonna have to fact check that one. But it's not to say that bands that speak in different languages can't make it big, but it's basically it's a lot harder to when you don't speak English. That's the way we've seen it. Like Rammstein is a prime example of an outlier of that happening. One other prime example of like a band that's really breaking through but just isn't really getting the mass attention behind them and speaks different language, especially more in the metal scene, even though I know they're very polarizing, is Baby Metal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it's like they just sing in Japanese the whole entire time, which a lot of people just like, you're not, it all depends upon how you feel about it basically. And with them, it's just, for me with Baby Metal, it's always song by song basis. There's some songs I just don't want to listen to ever again, but there's some songs I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. I like this. So it all depends upon the song by song basis, but I know they're really trying to get a huge base in the US as well, which they're building. However, when they've gone out on tour, especially in 2019, they weren't getting the draw that I think they were expecting. But like when they were over in Japan, I mean, the arenas that they would sell out would be insane.
Yeah, dude. There's that. As I was saying, like it all depends on like where you want to get to, right? And what you feel comfortable with. To be honest with you, I think, like when I was there in Brazil during that time, 2013, when the band started there, I was like, I wouldn't feel comfortable like singing in English in front of an audience. I don't know, man. It's like even though like it's cool, but I was just like I can't do it. But then here it's like the total opposite, right? Like I have to sing in English, and I'm loving it because like it's a new experience for me as well. Like to be able, I've written like songs in English my entire life, but I've never like actually been in studio and be like, okay, let's record it like a band, like like a serious thing. I have to make a couple of adjustments to like the lyrics and whatnot. So it's been an experience. I'm pretty comfortable with it though, but it's a new thing.
It is a new thing too, and again, it's just adapt. It's not necessarily like changing your sound to match the audience, but it's adapting to making sure that your sound can get out there. Because again, if you're gonna because you're originally from Brazil, correct? I got that right?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Yeah, so naturally you're gonna have a little bit more of this. Like I've spoke about this with a bunch of other bands that aren't from the U.S. or aren't native English from native English speaking countries. Where it's like whenever you speak, it's like kind of have that native language, native tongue, native accent a little bit, and it does like when you're speaking English, it does produce a little bit different sound on the words just because of the way that you're used to saying them in your native language. Right. And there are times where I've seen bands where they've gone one of two ways. One, they try and eradicate that as much as possible and try and really focus in on the correct pronunciation of the words, or they decide, you know what, we're just going to say them how we say them and hope for the best. And I'm actually like the second part of that more than the first part of that, because when you say the words in your native, like just with that native accent, and it just has a little bit of a different tone to it, they can, like some words that don't come across as powerfully spoken with just, that's like whatever a standard English accent would be, whether you're from the Midwest in the US over here up there, or you're out west or down south or out east or whatever it is. I don't care anymore. But it's just like they have like a different power to them. But like if you're gonna speak like a German accent, it's gonna have just put some of those like harder sounds just to have a little bit more of like that rawness to them. And like someone that has like a lighter accent just with a more of like a flowing kind of sound, like I'll use Spanish as an example, or Portuguese, like some of the stuff's gonna come across a little bit smoother in a way. However, you can really use that to your advantage as well, because
adds personality, right?
It adds personality, and it makes some words pop even more, makes some words drawn back even more. It makes them flow a little bit differently, and that can really just amplify a band in the end. And it's just all basically using what you have, using yourself. That's basically it.
Yeah, that's exactly it, man. Like it transcends the like instrumental part, right? Because you can add like that touch. People are like, okay, I'm wondering where this guy's from, or like where they're from, whatever. It's interesting.
You can add a little mystique to the whole entire thing. A little intrigue. It's just like, ooh, where is that guy from?
I don't know if you can notice it from my songs though, but I don't really think about it too much. I just try to pronounce the words as well as I can.
And when we get to talking about the music as well, I'll speak to that. But just to give you a little bit of an idea, I really don't think that it was really much of it, like a little bit of like a big thing that I could really tell. It's just, I think it's just the way that your vocal set is when you're singing. But we'll get into that when we talk about the song. But what I really want to know is just like when you're starting out, because again, taking a look at the style of music you play, what got you into that style of music with that rock, alternative rock kind of style? What was the biggest thing behind getting you into music?
Yeah, man, Nirvana was the main reason for this whole thing to, start pretty much. I had a friend of mine that was a huge Nirvana fan. The dude had everything you can think of, like from Nirvana, like VHS and like cassettes and like shirts and everything. And I've always looked at Nirvana as like a brand, you know what I mean? Like I'd see people wearing shirts and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I see like that little like smiley face, or I don't know, like high face, I think. That's cool. And Kurt Cobain is a really strong brand, right? Like he represents so many things like with his image, and it was super powerful. But like I was never like, okay, let me check it out. I mean, I was, I don't know, 13 years old. um I had started playing at the church first. That's the first time that I saw a drum set. I'm like, oh my god, I think it's genetic, man. Like my family, nobody plays any instrument whatsoever, you know. And I just like had that moment where I see a guy playing drums. I'm like, I want to do that. Like I love this, like the sound. I don't know. I think it's something you can't really explain, because like my parents don't play music. Like nobody sings, nobody does anything related to music, and I've always been fascinated by it. And that's the sound of Chicago right there.
Oh, I thought
Tons
that
of
was actually outside of me, because there's a fire station about 3 blocks away from me, and when I got back home from the gym today, literally as I get out of my car, all of a sudden I see like a fire department ambulance just like whizzing right past me, and I was just standing by my car. I'm like, don't move so they don't swerve.
Yeah, man, here in Chicago it's crazy. But anyway, um so yeah, I started playing at the church, like getting to see other people playing other instruments. But then this other friend of mine had like an obsession with Nirvana, so he's like, man, you gotta check it out, whatever. And then I went to his house because he had a drum set there. Okay, let's he invited me to go play, and I was like, yeah, I was 13 years old at the time. And then he started like converting me, man, like an evangelist, Hey, dude, look at this. Hey, man, look at that. And he'd put like Dave Grohl smashing the drums. I was fascinated by it. That was it, man. Like, I saw Dave Grohl like beating the shit out of the drum set. I'm like, holy fuck, that's amazing. Woo, I want to do that too.
Your friend the evangelist probably like, let Kurt Cobain be your god and let Dave Grohl
Yeah.
be your Jesus.
Yep, pretty much it. Like he didn't introduce me to Nevermind. He gave me a cassette of like Incesticide, which is like this side B thing that Nirvana did before Nevermind, if I'm not mistaken. So I had my Walkman, and I went home and I just put it to play, and was playing Dive at the time, which starts with like the bass. Dum, 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 I was like, woo. Was love at first sight, man. I was just obsessed with it. I was like, I want to play this, and my dad gave me a guitar because I was a drummer. But then I don't know, I don't remember, but my dad for some reason gave me an acoustic guitar, and I started like playing around with it. And I remember that with Dive, I think the first note is an E on the bass, so it's pretty like kind of intuitive for you to figure it out. Like the first string that you play is like the E, and it starts with the E as well. So it's like boom, 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 boom. I was like, oh man, I can play that. So I played through and try to like catch the notes as the song was going. I just had an ear for it, I guess. And I started like, okay, I'll learn the first song was Dive. And then I went to Banasson, which is the second one. And then, Nirvana became like oh my God. And then I got to know about the whole thing with Kurt Cobain and like Herring and all that shit, and then Foo Fighters with Dave Grohl. And then that's what got me into alternative music. And then of course I started like that, like between 14, 15, like that punk rock phase as well. Started like Blink 182 and like Sum 41, and started like listening to other like punk bands. I think my style is just a mix of like alternative rock and punk rock, sort of. Became a huge Blink 182 fan as well through another friend. So it's pretty much evangelized, man. Like people converted me to rock and roll. I had like an inclination, but
Yeah,
through friends.
So it's kind of like your mixture went from like alt rock, hard rock, and skate punk. So you're talking about Blink 182, Sum 41. I think of those, it's like you think of pop punk, but more skate punk bands, because they kind of really epitomize that like early 2000s kid that had like the winter hat beanie with a little bit of a rim on there, had a skateboard, was like always had like a band shirt on, but I had like a gray long sleeve underneath. Had the chains on his jeans.
The whole full leaf tattoos and.
Oh yeah, but it's just always like everyone kind of ends up having like a little bit of that like punk rock phase as they go through life. Me, yeah, I never wanted to give it up, so
Yeah, man, Rise Against, like as fast as you can get.
oh god, yeah, it's just like, and every time I talk, it's like people are like, okay, so what's your favorite band? Rise Against. Why? And I'm
Yeah.
like, I like, if you want me to, I can go on like a 10-minute tangent, but they're like, okay, we get it, we get it. I'm like, yeah, I
They're
know.
from Chicago, right?
They're from Chicago, so it's
Were
like
you at Riot Fest last year? I
I
mean, last
was at
year.
Riot Fest last year,
Yeah,
yeah.
man, me too. It was fucking awesome. That show was great.
God, that show was insane, and it was cause crazy because all of a sudden like people were again like, did you see like people were passing out like left and right in that crowd, and
Yeah.
because like medical attention couldn't get them, we were literally just like picking them up and like crowds are from the front. It's like, get them out of here. Why? They need help, and that's where the help is. So go.
Rise Against was definitely bigger than the Blink-182 show, I think.
Uh,
Like, I don't know, for some reason I just felt like, I don't know if it was because they're playing here, and like I think the singer, I don't know, like the members, but I remember the singer saying something about like that he used to play at that park when he was little, and that he was headlining with the band there. It was like a special thing for him or something like that. You can tell better.
I actually can, and yeah, that pretty much actually sums up right because Tim McGrath is originally from Chicago, still lives in Chicago. So like at Douglas Park, because I do have the poster right up here from that show. Literally, I'm looking at it because the show's on September 4th, 2019 at Douglas Park in Chicago,
Yep.
Illinois for Riot Fest. Only reason I can say this because I'm literally looking at it, what it says about the poster right there. But I remember that show because it was like the old, like, because a lot of people were telling me like they'd been there the night beforehand because Blink-182 was the headliner, and just what Rise Against had that night was bigger than Blink-182 had. However, I think there's three major pieces for that. One is because yes, they're a huge punk band. They're a huge band in their own right. They're playing in Chicago, so they're playing in their hometown. Two, it's Riot Fest. It's supposed to be about that harder punk rock sound, so people are going to gravitate towards that and how much fun they're going to have. And three is because they were on the stages that were right next to each other.
Yeah.
And it was going to be Slayer's last show in Chicago, Milwaukee area ever. So people were already going over there for it. However, I just remember there was a point in time where about halfway through, like I was about to feel like I was about to pass out because I was near the front and I was getting pushed around left. And I'm like, geez, I got to find some air. And I looked to my right and there's like towards the middle of the
front
stage,
row guy then.
No, what happened was because I was about 7 or 8 people back from the front row. I looked to my right, and all of a sudden I started seeing this area open up a little bit. I'm like, oh, there's gonna be air there and cooler weather. I gotta go there, and I saw what was opening up there, and because it was a mosh pit, I'm just like, oh, thank you, and I just made my way for it, and I was in there. And by the time everyone felt like they're gonna pass out, all of a sudden you hear Tim just like, all right, we're gonna slow this one down a little bit, and everyone was just like, we get to breathe. Thank you. But yeah, that show was just absolutely intense. I loved it every step of the way. So it's like when I talk about, like, I love talking about Chicago music because it's such a good scene there, especially for anything with hard rock and metal, because you take a look at some of the best bands that originated from there. I mean, Rise Against, I got to always give it to them. Disturbed
Pumpkins, man.
from there. Smashing Pumpkins. Chevelle. I love Chevelle as well. There's so many that are there, and I love going to shows in Chicago as well. Like I said, again, Douglas Park. The one place I really haven't been to was House of Blues. I've been to the Metro. I've been to the Aragon Ballroom, and I absolutely love the Aragon because it's just the insane architecture. And we're like, holy shit, this is like the rave, but like even more gothic and more crazy with the architecture. This is freaking awesome.
Yeah, it is freaking awesome. Yeah, that place is magic.
And of course, it's no surprise when I went to that venue for the one time I went there, who I went to go see. I don't think it's a surprise at this point.
Rise Against.
Oh, of course. So it's like when I saw initially, like with yours, like, okay, the band originated from Chicago. I'm like, okay, they're already off to a good start because of just the history that's behind that city in terms of music as well. So I'm like, alrighty, let's see what we got here. Plus, especially when I looked more into it and you're talking about, basically your rock God, or I say rock Jesus is basically like Dave Grohl, which kind of makes sense because he kind of looks like rock dad Jesus.
Yes, he does. My mom was actually like, oh, he looks like Jesus. I'm like, oh my God. And there's like a meme of him, right? Like with Jesus's like clothes or something like that. It's pretty funny too.
If my grandma was still around, because she always had pictures of Jesus up in the house, I probably, right now, if she was still around, I probably would have just like done a couple of just like replace some of the photos with like different people dressed like Jesus. So I'd have done Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. I would have done Dave Grohl just to see what would happen. Yeah, and just to see when she would actually realize what would happen. Would I probably, not be as liked as much? Well, I wasn't the favorite of the grandkids anyway, so I don't think I would have anything to lose at that point.
It wouldn't really matter, man.
No, I was between them. I was never the favorite grandkid. That was always my brother.
Okay.
So I literally had nothing to lose at that point.
Everything goes.
Everything goes, but you know what? Oh well, what you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
She probably would have been like, Kevin, what the heck is this? I've been like, see, that is. I'd be like, that is Star Wars Jesus. That's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Who is this? That's Rock Jesus. That's Dave Grohl.
Rock Jesus, yeah, man. It's just, yeah. I to be honest with you, I never imagined that he'd be able to pull it off with the Foo Fighters after Nirvana, because when you're a Nirvana fan, you don't think anything else is gonna be as great as Nirvana in terms of like what they represented at the time, and everything that goes with it, like Kurt Cobain's story and all that stuff. But Dave Grohl is unique in history, in my opinion, because he was able to be a rock star twice, man. Like, he could have stopped and, be the drummer for, like, some huge band and stuff. But the guy was like, okay, I'm going to, go to another side of the stage. I'm going to be in front and be an entertainer, because people think it's easy, but it's freaking hard. One thing is, like, be talented and be able to sing and play, whatever. Another thing is, when you try to be like good at that and good at entertaining people, it's they're like a frontman's like two different functions. I mean, at least for me. I mean, some guys, I go to see some guys play like some huge bands and stuff, and I listen to them like, holy shit, that's amazing, man. Like Vans Warped Tour was like the lab for me. I'd go there like, to watch the bands that I love, and I'm like, holy shit, man, let's see this band. And then like they put on a show that I'm like, yo, like that was kind of disappointing. Like the music's awesome, but they're not really good entertainers, And I think Dave Grohl has like a sweet spot in rock music because of that, because he was able like to get everything, like stadium full of like 70,000 people. Have you watched the Wembley show?
I've watched bits and pieces of it.
It's freaking crazy, man. Like he gets everybody like singing together, and like he screams his ass off, and it's just amazing. He convinced me through, like talent. It was not like something that was like, oh, whatever, I love the guy. But when you go and see them live, like the last show that I went to was Wrigley in 2018. They played 2 nights in a row, man. Thursday and Friday. 3-hour show, like crazy screaming, like, walking right and left, and, like making people sing along. It's just, It's just, the guy is like, something else.
Yeah, but I only got to see one show at Wrigley, and it was back in 2012 when Bruce Springsteen played.
Another great performer.
And it was somewhere, it was like, I think he went on like a half hour to an hour late, but then they turned the stadium lights on at 11 o'clock to try and be like, okay, Bruce, it's done. You can go now. And he didn't stop till like 12:30. But I mean, it like by the end of it, like he looked like he was tired. He looked like he'd had enough, but he was going to give us the best show possible. And I do have to give him credit for that, because he must have been just like absolutely exhausted by the time it was over. He looked like just sweating profusely, just looked exhausted, but ended it in the most Ferris Bueller fashion ever by covering Twist and Shout by the Beatles. But when it comes to the whole entire frontman thing that you're talking about, I do have to agree with you 100%, especially when it comes to Dave Grohl, because you take a look at it like you're playing drums, you're the backbone of probably the biggest band from the 1990s. Yeah. And it was over before the half of a decade was even done. Yeah. And all of a sudden, now you're turning it, then all of a sudden you go to the other end of the stage, you're playing guitar, you're the front man, you're singing. It's a whole new ball game, because now you're in the front as well. One thing that I really think helped him out in the end as well was when he was writing the records, and he was like he put that first record out there, he never really tried to like rest on the laurels of Nirvana at all. He was like, this is something completely different. This is something new. This isn't a Nirvana like restart. This isn't a carryover or anything. And then they came out The Color and the Shape in 97. You heard songs like Everlong, Monkey Wrench, My Hero. It was like, this is completely different. And then as time went on, especially in the 2000s, it just kept building and building and got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where I think they're like the biggest thing they ever did was like when they did Wasting Light in 2011. Like
Yeah,
that,
that
especially
was
with how
that
they
was
recorded, how well it was received. It was like now they're on top of the world. Now they're starting to like change up a little bit, have a little bit more of like this like mature, polished sound to what they originally had, similar to what Seven Dust has done in their past 2 records.
Mhm.
So it's just something that's like, you're not changing the sound, you're just transitioning it into something a little bit different. But
Yeah.
what I want to talk about with like the frontman thing is I totally get what you're saying, because there are bands that I've really wanted to go see and was really hoping, like, I love, like, the music is great, love it, and then you go to the show and it's just like,
What is this?
yeah,
Right?
because it's like they go up there, they play, they say hi to the crowd, and that's it.
Yeah, like
Or
I think people forget, like artists and some bands forget that, like when people are there, they want to see you put on a really good show, like you are there to entertain them, you know, and like not just to play music, because like you can freaking play a live music in your room, man. Like when you see a live band, you want to see action. You want to see like the guy, like putting on a show, right? That's how I see it. I don't know if everybody does, but that's how I see it.
how
And
I see it,
so yeah.
I was gonna say how I see it is like with the live shows, like especially the frontman, if you're giving off this certain energy and you're really putting in that energy, putting in that vibe to really kind of amp up the crowd's gonna feed off of that and then throw it right back at you, and it's gonna be
Yeah.
back and forth to a point where you could be a band where I really don't know much about you, to the point all of a sudden like I go and see one of your live shows and it just is a complete game changer. I mean, the
Blows your
band,
mind. They're like, I gotta check out, like, this guy there.
yeah, the band that comes to mind for me for that is absolutely Ice Nine Kills, because I went to go see them beginning November 2019, and they were headlining with Fit for a King and Light the Torch opening for them. And I wanted to see Light the Torch, so I wanted to see Howard Jones perform live. That was what I wanted to do. And all of a sudden, it's like, okay, Howard Jones. It wasn't something that I was like fully expecting, but it was good. All of a sudden, Fit for a King comes, and they were playing the type of show that I love, which is like that, basically the Rise Against style, where they're gonna go out there, they're not gonna have really all this like stage flair or anything, but they're just gonna play, and the energy is gonna show from it with their actions on stage, with how they're moving around, and it's just the energy fed off it in the crowd. But then you got to Ice Nine Kills, and all of a sudden, it was like that, but it was like a theatrical production with all the different horror movies that they were pulling off, and just the way that Spencer Charnas was running around on stage, jumping into the crowd, all the different crazy things that he was doing. I'm just like,
Oh my god.
no.
Yeah,
So when it comes
that's
to being,
exactly it.
so when it comes to having that like anatomy of a frontman, it's just you've got to know how to interact with the crowd in a positive way to keep amping up that energy if that's what you want to do.
Gotta read the crowd, man. Like the songs that you're gonna play, like we're gonna stop a little bit and like play some pop songs, and they're gonna go and like start back again. There's gotta be like that back and forth, right?
Yeah, because again, I gotta bring up Tim McGrath on this one, because when you take a look at like I'll go to the 2 shows of Rise Against that I saw in 2019, or did I see 3? No, I saw 2. I'm losing my mind here, but I saw them twice. Once was again at Ride Fest, where now you're at that outdoor venue, people are really packed together, they want that energy, you're gonna get that mosh pit style, and just the normal kind of style that he has, where it's just politically charged, but with a lot of power, a lot of rawness, a lot of angst to it, and just constantly moving around stage. That's gonna feed off of it. However, they did that whole entire like Ghost Note Symphonies thing, the acoustic set. They did 4 shows of that, or 5 shows of that in like April and May of 2019. They did one at the Chicago Theater, and I went to that one because I'm like, I can't miss that. I want to go to it. And it was just the setting and just what was expected. Just having this like calmer style, this more like conversation, more intimate style. It was something where it's like, is that my favorite kind of show? No, but
No.
Did it absolutely work? Yes, because that was the expectation. That was what the crowd was again expecting. You worked with the crowd, and you let the venue also, with it being like a major theater, kind of speak for itself as well. You really kind of brought in that ambiance. So, and other artists again do that as well, very well. Look at Dave Grohl, because it's just you have like you look at the Foo Fighters concerts, everyone's just having a great time, and a lot of that is driven off of the energy and just the kind of vibrato and personality that Dave Grohl has.
Definitely, man. I think one of the things that he says, I mean, I think Pat Smear said it actually. It wasn't Dave Grohl. That like Dave, like Nirvana's success was like pretty fast, right? It was like there were nobodies, and all of a sudden, boom, biggest band in the world, like and a lot of things happened like super fast in their lives. But Dave Grohl's like through Pat Smear said that Dave kind of learned a lot through like Nirvana's experience to be able to apply in the Foo Fighters, right? Like for example, during one of the last Nirvana shows, Kurt, like which was in Brazil actually, Hollywood Rock '93. Kurt was completely wasted, dude. Like he was so high. He didn't. I think he played like four songs or something like that, and then left the stage. And think about it, Nirvana was the biggest band in the world at that time. It was like I don't know, man, like a huge number, like 150,000 people or something like that. Like the crowd is like crazy, expecting like Smells Like Teen Spirit and Come As You Were and all that. And Kurt doesn't give a fuck because he's super high, right? Like he's just like, whatever, like fuck you, I don't care, you know? Imagine being the drummer in the band, like he had a microphone to do like some, backing vocals, whatever, some harmonies, but he didn't have control over it. Like he was just watching the guy do whatever he wanted, like at that time, which was Kurt Cobain. It's like, okay, I'm a drummer. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like go in front and be like, hey, people, sorry, like the lead singer is fucked up, so like we're not gonna put on a great show for like 150,000 people. So like that kind of shaped him in a way. He's like, if I start another band, if I'm gonna be the Kurt Cobain of this band, like the lead singer, I'm gonna do everything different, right? Like he says that when they did Wembley, for example, he put like the wallpaper of his phone, Fred Mercury, like on Wembley, because he was so inspired by the way that he was able to like to connect with the audience. And I think a huge part of like being a Foo Fighters fan is like because I think they're fucking great live band, man. Like, and I love live shows. Like I'm obsessed with it, and it's just amazing the way they connect with like the fans and the energy that Dave brings on stage. It's just another level, and kind of inspired me to wanting to do the same thing, right? Because I was a drummer too. It's like a similar story. So
yeah, you kind of have that like similar story that Dave Grohl
Yeah.
has, except right now on a smaller scale because you're just
Of
not at the
course.
level of Dave Grohl. you're
not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
You're not the level of like international stardom from not one but two bands, and then also just like popping up a couple of different places, like on the No One Knows by Queens of the Stone Age song. Like,
Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah,
when I say similar story, I mean like being the drummer of a couple of bands and then deciding that you want to do something else, right?
Yeah, but all of a sudden, like you could end up like I'll be watching like a music video for a different band like from Chicago, and it's like all of a sudden I'm gonna see you drumming, and I'll be like, "What the heck, Tico? Like you're really doing this whole entire Dave Grohl thing, like do a T."
Yeah, dude.
But then but then it's like as a frontman yourself now, you can take a lot of inspiration from that because you're seeing basically kind of like what works and what doesn't work, but also remembering that every person is different because your personality is going to be different than someone you're like you're not going to put on the same kind of show that Dave Grohl's going to put on. You're not going to put on the same kind of show that Chris Emotionless and White is going to. Not same as Marilyn Manson, not same as David Draymond. I mean, again, just throwing names out there
different.
Because every person is different. Yeah. Every person has a different vibe to them. So you have to understand, like, again, what you're doing and how you want to do it. Even take a look at like this podcast, for example. If you go to other music podcasts, you're not gonna get like what I'm gonna be putting out there. That's
people, man.
However,
people's experiences and worldviews are completely different, right? And that's what makes a band. Like every person's different. They bring like their energies and their their stories and whatever like together, and becomes a thing different from any other thing.
And a prime example of that is I'm using System of a Down. Prime example of that with
freaking just crazy band.
Everything with their everything with their politics, everything with their Armenian heritage as well. Just being wrapped up into music where sometimes when you listen to the lyrics, like, what the hell were they putting in there? But then it's just like how deep, like, and how metaphorical they go. It's just like, oh shit, man, that's like some good stuff.
System's fucking crazy, man. It's one of the, I don't think there's anything like it in the world at all.
If you're ever at a live show for like anything with hard rock, metal, or anything in those like subgenres around that as well, and you're at a live show and there's like a transition between one band to the next, if they play Chop Suey by System of a Down, that is my second favorite song because people get so into it. Yeah, because last year I saw it was Beartooth, I Prevail, and A Day to Remember, and between I Prevail and Day to Remember, it was. A Day to Remember did this perfectly because they were playing a bunch of like just random stuff. They played like Africa by Toto. They're playing like 90s hip hop and like 90s boy band songs just to get people just like constantly like still into it, just having fun. When they played Chop Suey, people were just going nuts. Like mosh pits were forming just in between like sets. And then right before they went on, they played probably what I think is if you're a hard rock band and you're gonna be doing like a live show, you're gonna transition from one song, like one band to the next. Play Numb by Linkin Park because the whole crowd gets into it like that. Like right when you hear the beginning of it, and the thing is you're not gonna take away from. Like if you play like something like Welcome to Black Parade, like that's gonna end up overshadowing the show. You don't want to end up overshadowing the actual performance, but you want to keep people engaged. And I think Numb is the perfect thing to do it with. Along with you throw in Chop Suey in there as well, and then throw in some random stuff there just to keep it fun. You're gonna keep the crowd engaged with the show even between the sets. So even use like as a frontman,
great tip.
Even using like some of those ideas as well can really just keep that energy going and keep that flow going because you don't want something where all of a sudden you're gonna have a band like I'm trying to think like have a band like I'll use Beartooth as an example, just this high energy, high impact kind of style, and then all of a sudden you're gonna be playing something really soft in the middle, and then you go to a band like A Day to Remember because then the energy is completely lost. If you keep that energy going, it's just gonna build. So all of a sudden when you hear da, 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 like people are gonna be going, all of a sudden you hear let's go, and then
yeah,
look at me,
definitely,
giving you
man.
guys tips. Oh, yeah.
Giving me tips. Yeah, I remember doing that with AC/DC's people go nuts when they hear that.
Easily, because it's everyone has a good memory associated with AC/DC and
man.
anything off the Back in Black album easily,
or like Enter Sandman. There's some riffs in rock history that if you throw them like in a show, it's like a turning point, you know, like to get people engaged. I've always loved like playing covers because of that. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna play 2 songs from the band. People don't really know it, and then I'm gonna throw like some cover there, and people are gonna be like, "Oh my god," you know. And then they engage with you, and they're like more open to pay attention to whatever we're gonna play after. So that's even the big bands do it, man.
Yeah,
that's why I play fucking Under Pressure
by Queen,
right? Yeah.
I've always been like a little bit of a purveyor of when it comes to bands that are emerging in the scene right now. When it comes to you're playing live shows. And the audience really doesn't know you, kind of in a way. Like you're gonna mostly want to play your original stuff because you're gonna want to get them a sense of feel. But I like what you said. It's like, okay, start off with 1 song your own, 2 songs your own, so people get a feel for you, and then play a cover that they're gonna know, or 2, just to really get them more interested, get them into the band a little bit more, get them in that vibe. But again, the covers have to kind of fit your style as well, so that when you go back into your original stuff, it's that flow still works.
Transition.
It's all a mindset kind of thing. It's all a psychological kind of experiment as well, just to really bring people in. But then all of a sudden they're going to say, because, ooh, this sounds familiar. I like this.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Pretty much what you're describing is like a way to like put on a great show, right? Like on a 101. That's exactly it.
Man, I should like. That's why I should like just keep like. I should keep like evolving this podcast. It's like, okay, we're talking about like not only talking to the emerging bands and getting to know them, getting to know their music as well, but also talking to them about the thought process behind playing live shows, behind being independent bands, behind all this stuff, so that it's just like you're getting not only into these bands, but you're getting another angle of it as well. So it's like the fans are getting what they want, and then the other bands are getting something that they like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's some value to it, definitely.
There is some value to it, and again, but when you're playing a live show, one thing you always want to make sure you have is you have a good, you have mostly your own original stuff in there to play, like a song you have coming out on November 27th.
There you go.
Look at that transition.
I like the transition, man.
Alrighty, so tell me about this song, which is called Runaway, and I will say this. You sent it to me. I've already listened to it. I've done a deep dive into it, but before we do that, I want to know what you have to say about the song. Just anything you want to talk about, just the inspiration behind it, the meaning behind it, because I always kind of take a look at, okay, what's the meaning of the song? How do the instrumentals sound? How do the vocals sound? How does that all work together? And then bring it into a whole overall scope of a thing. There's like 2 or 3 pages in a Microsoft Word document that has all the notes on here. So
holy crap, man.
Yeah, I go deep on this stuff. And this isn't like this isn't, I'll put it this way. This isn't anything like crazy special for just you. Like, every band that's been on the podcast, like I'll go deep into like at least one song, sometimes two, sometimes three, all depends upon what the scenario is. But because this is the brand new one called Runaway,
There you go.
again, I went deep in this one, so I want to hear you talk about it.
Sure, man. This song, I have a little secret about it regarding like what I thought of this song when we started playing it. I was actually trying to remember the exact moment where we came up with the riff, but I don't. I just remember that I came into the studio with the guys and I was like, "Hey guys, I have this idea." I think it was like I got this idea like 30 minutes before rehearsal or something, and I had no expectations whatsoever about that this thing would become a song at all. And then they were like, "Man, that's play it again." I played it again. They're like, "This sounds really good, man. Like, I'm digging it. Okay, let's try to work it out." And then it became a song. But at the time, I gotta tell you, I was like, I don't know, man. I'm not into this song. It's crazy because I heard stories about like a bunch of like bands that when they don't like the song, or like when the songwriter, usually you're not like the guy's not into the song or whatever, it's when the people like it the most. I was like, okay, I like it, whatever. And then we started like working on it and like putting some more elements, and then I started creating like the melody, and I was like, okay, that fucking sounds good. And then after the mastering process and like when the song became like a thing, I was like, holy shit, this sounds really good, man. And the guy was like, I told you, man, like you didn't believe me, but this song is like my favorite or whatever. But so yeah, that was like a really a really interesting experience, because I was not expecting that the song was going to become like this, you know, gigantic thing for us, right? Like for the band, because I was like, yeah, whatever, this riff. Because when you have like this idea that you love and you're like, guys, gotta check it out. They're like, yeah, it's cool, whatever. Like, what do you mean it's cool, man? It's the best thing in the world, right? Like, because you think it's great. But then when you don't pay attention to it and other people say it's great, it's like, okay, let me pay attention to it once. And
You
then that's how it came to be, pretty much. The song was actually like written in Portuguese first, so I kind of like got the melody and like turned it into English. And yeah, man. And there is a part of the song that there's like a huge like guitar solo. Like the foundation of the solo was written by the guitarist that is in Brazil right now, Lucas. But then I met this other guy, which is a huge guitarist that I admire a lot in Brazil, called Tel, and he shredded it, man. He's like, "Hey, man, there's this space for this for your solo. What do you think about it?" He just sent it to me. I was like, "That fucking like changed the game." It was a huge solo for me. I mean, I can't shred like that at all, but the guy did a really good job on that one. So, yeah, what are your questions? I'm really curious about what you.
We'll definitely go deeper into that, but one thing I do want to bring up is when you talk about when you create this, at first you're like, this maybe wasn't like your favorite, you weren't connecting with it as well. And usually, there's times where bands put out those songs where they just don't feel like they're their favorites or they really care that much for it, in terms of like just in like they care for them. But in terms of the grand scheme of things, when you rank them, they're not going to be ranked very high. And the fans really like them as well. And I think a lot of that also comes in from just sometimes they are catchier, sometimes they have like these bigger hooks that just really the fans can get into. Or sometimes when it comes to the meaning of the song as well, it might not be as specific as you wanted to something that you were going through in life or something that you really related to. But with it being more of an abstract kind of thing, people connect to that meaning in different ways because they connect to the feeling, but it's like they don't connect to the actual event that you're talking about, but they connect to the feeling that you felt in that, because everyone's gone through a bunch of stuff. And at times, I haven't gone through the same things you do, but I might have felt the same emotions that you did.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to talk about that, I'm going to end up relating to that. And I've talked to other bands about this as well. They're like, this is why we don't like Nickelback, because sometimes it's way too specific what they're talking about, or it's way too vague. But it's like when you find that happy medium where it can be really abstract, but just have a little bit of guidance in there in the lyrics to really kind of guide you through kind of what emotion that you're trying to describe. Or if you're really specific, but you have a little bit of that abstractness in there so people can connect to it in a little bit of a different way. I mean, that's when you really get a lot of these songs that really hit hard with the fans. So that's kind of where it's like I can see where bands are like, oh, I don't really like this song and why they're the biggest ones that they have. One of the bands I've actually interviewed, they're called Fight Like Sin. We were talking about this well because I'm like, one of the fan favorites is one of my favorite songs by them, and the lead singer was like, this. At first, he's like, he said like, I don't really like this one. He's like, well, let me rephrase. I'm like, okay, you got to rephrase that. He's like, I like
Yeah.
it, but in terms of like where I like overall scope, I think it's not one of my favorites. I'm like, now that makes more sense. Again, like the ranking thing, where it's like,
The ranking
it's
thing.
not gonna be up. It's gonna be here compared to here. I like the song, but it's just not as good as there's more that I like within there, which makes total sense.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of people don't know this, but Basselview by the Foo Fighters, like they weren't going to release that song. Like Dave didn't like it, and they were like, whatever, man. That song's just whatever, and they shoved it. And then they're about to release like to together like all the songs to make the In Your Honor record. And the producer's like, what about that song that you guys were rehearsing the other day? Like, which songs? Like the one that goes like the best pounding in your head, the best, the best, the best.
The best.
And like, no, dude, that song, like, well, what about it? It's like, dude, that song is fucking great. You gotta put it in the album. Like, okay, whatever. One of the biggest songs of the band, it's fucking crazy.
I'll even add to that as well, because my favorite song of all time by my favorite band, of course, got the t-shirt on with Rise Against, is their biggest song, which is Savior. And
Savior.
I've seen things with Tim McGrath where he's talked about where he's like, he was actually thinking about taking that song completely off of Appeal the Reason.
Really?
And the reason behind it was it was something where they were making it. It was, he really liked the riff behind it, and he really liked everything that was constructed with the instrumentals. But as they were going through it, he changed the vocal pattern up from what it originally was to what it did become. And because of that change, he felt like he didn't connect with the song nearly as much as he did with all the other tracks and some of the tracks they kept off of it. So he wanted to pull it off it, but someone talked him into putting it on there. They put it out as a single, and it's their biggest song. And he's like, I love the song, don't get me wrong, but it's just I wanted to take it off because I felt connected to these other songs versus that one because of that change in the vocal pattern.
There's that too. That's a good point, because that's kind of what happened to me with this new song. I was so used to like listening to in Portuguese, like the vocals and like how it, used to flow and whatnot. But that's why I was like, I'm not sure about this one. But then when I translated into English and I, went to the studio and like put the harmonies together, and like I was like, whoa, then like now I love the song and I'm really excited about it. But it's just like a different environment that you're in, like something that you change to. It's like, okay, maybe this thing's gonna make it sound better or whatever. But yeah.
It just gives off a different vibe to it as well. It's just like when you're writing it, because you're so used to being one way, but then when you change it up, it's like you just don't feel as connected. You feel a little bit nervous about it. And when it comes to just people that really aren't musicians that might be listening to this, like myself, where I'm not necessarily a musician, but it was like when I was in college writing like these big papers, because I was an econ major, so writing all these econ papers that I had to write, like there were times like I had to change stuff up because I love the way it sounded, but it wasn't getting the point across the way that I wanted to get it across to whoever was reading it. So I had to change it up, and I didn't feel as strongly about it as I did my previous one. However, I had to remember it's like, okay, it's just the way, it's just trying to present it in the best way possible, which is something, it's not the same, but it's just kind of, again, that similar-ish emotion that goes through when you're creating something.
Yep, exactly. I think you said it perfectly. Like it applies to everything actually. Like it can be like a freaking essay that you write, or like anything, like a video that you do, whatever. It's just same thing. Yeah.
Very much. Well, now let's break down Runaway, because I really wanted, I know you're looking excited for this, and I really want to. First thing I want to get is, what is the overall meaning behind this song? Because I think I got it, and I'm usually pretty good with this, but I want to hear what you actually had on this to see how close I was.
The general meaning, that's tricky, because like I don't know if you've heard of it, but like some people don't like talking about their like songs, because they're like, okay, let's leave it like, to the audience, so like they can get their own meaning, whatever. But it's just like about a situation where you start like, you feel like trapped inside a situation, and you're like, I imagine how it would be if I wasn't here, right? Like if it was some other situation outside of this. And then you start thinking, like every time that you're put in a situation similar to this one, you go like to this other place in your head, and you start like, like dreaming about this possible scenarios outside of like this current one. And it's pretty literal, like, how you get yourself into a position to start like dreaming and thinking about all the things where like something happens to you, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but
Okay, so I'll put it this way. I love what you said about like, you want to let the audience really pick it for yourself, but you're going to see where this really rings true because what I thought it
Mhm.
was it was about like basically like the closing moments of a relationship and how one person is completely over it and is like taking all the blame for everything that's going wrong in the relationship. So again, being that they're completely over it and then having this feeling like they should go their own way, forget all about the other person for quite some time, just leave it in the past. And it's kind of like that dreaming of, okay, what's going to be like after this? Like what, like just kind of trying to get away from that situation. So in terms of it, like what you had, again, more of like a broader stance to it. I
Mhm.
took it, kind of took the exact same meaning, but made it a little bit more narrow for what something, because it's something like, I've dealt with some of this stuff before
Yeah.
on
I think
actually,
everybody has.
actually both ends of it too. So I kind of get the emotion that was being brought out here. So I could, and just the way the lyrics were written as well. So I do kind of understand it, where again, it comes together in that similar way where you kind of kept it abstract and let me kind of narrow it in with my own life. Again, that's
Right.
where songs really connect with people.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it, man. Like, I think you got the meaning of like behind it. If you talk about relationships, it doesn't have to be like a romantic relationship, right? It can be like a relationship with like person that you admire, like, from work or whatever. Um, but yeah, that's a good point that you brought up.
Yep. And now it's time to go even further into this. And when I start with all these again, I always start with the meaning, then I go to the instrumentals, then the vocals, then we bring it all together. So we're going to start with the instrumental construction on this track. So when we start out with this, how it's introed, how I took it was we get this, again, if I see my eyes constantly like glancing over here, looking at
Sure.
the note sheet,
Look
and I,
at the
cause I don't want
notes.
to fuck this up. So in the intro, we get this rather like what I thought was like a normal pace intro with that rock sound that mixes elements of rock, pop punk, kind of more skate punk, which kind of speaks to
A
your
Blink 182
Blink
phase.
182, some 41 phase, and emo in it all at once. And I put in this now. This is interesting because we're getting more of this like 80s rock shred in the guitar, which is what you had with what was the guy's name? Tell?
Tell, yeah,
Yeah.
tell, yeah.
And the overall, but then you get the overall movement of the song in like a pop punk kind of setting with the way that the drums were. But then it also has this overall like more downtrodden emo tone. And I thought this song could go in so many ways just with how dynamic and how well constructed this intro is, just to allow you to go so many different ways. It all depends upon where it goes from here because you're leaving yourself open to so many possibilities at this point. So again, it's something where you have this vast world ahead of you. What path do you take?
Yeah, that's brilliant, man. I never thought about it that way at all, but now that you're saying, I'm like, holy shit, that's pretty precise.
Again, this is what I do. I go
Yeah,
deep into
yeah,
this
man,
kind of
you go
stuff.
deep. I love it.
And
That's
now we
exactly it.
and now we continue because as I took at this, as we get into the verses, I thought we got more of this like that emo mix, that emo rock mix into the pop punk style where the drums, again, you kept up that pop punk style with them. The guitars keep that similar style they had in the intro, but the tone is just changed up ever so slightly, which gives it more of an emo feel. And why I like this here in this moment is because it really speaks to the meaning of the song, like we just spoke out about. Because when you get more of that like classic 2000 style like emo tone on this song, that mixes well with both the pop punk styling and of course the emo feel of it in the overall, in terms of, you're stuck in a situation and you just want to get out of it, kind of like, oh, no one understands me, God, kind of
Yeah,
way. Just because
yeah.
like I was just thinking about the South Park goth kid, just like, gosh, man.
I can't get out of it.
Yeah, kind of something like that. So I'm like, I love the mixture of how that worked into here because, again, it really relates to the overall emotion that the meaning of the song has. So putting that in there, but also keeping up that like pop punk style in the drums as well, just to keep that flow going, it allowed this song to really transition from that intro into these verses.
Yeah, man, you should do more of that, definitely. Like, I'd like to. I think I'm gonna transcript everything that you said.
Oh, I can just send you the note sheet.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'd love that.
that'll
I'd
be
love
the
to have
easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, because I was thinking about writing like an article about this song specifically, because when I listen to it, I see that there's like a lot of different elements. It's crazy because like when you're influenced by different bands, comes out in your sound, right? It's freaking crazy. But like when you have someone else listen to it, it's like, oh, I can like hear this and hear this and hear that. But yeah, regarding this song, it's like I recorded the drums as well and like the guitars. And like for this song, I use like this technique that Travis uses, which is like, you know, like rain shot sort of vibe that he does like for I Miss You. And then like to give it more like a, I don't know, I just felt like that the riff of the guitar was like, you know, sounding good with this thing. Just went with it. But then it gave this song like this pop punk like vibe as well. But yeah, I think you can speak more to that than I can actually.
I'll go even further into it because then we'll go to the choruses as the next
yeah,
point.
let's go to chorus. Yeah,
I think the choruses they took a more fuller approach with the pop punk drumming and the emo guitar tone coming in. While I could have, of course, like again, when you take a look at it in the full scope of things, I mean, I'm being completely honest here. I find that could be potentially bland if you didn't do what you did in the second half of the chorus and that allowed it to transition back into verse 2, because the guitar tone had this overall like rougher tone to it in the second half, and it really brings more of that breakup emotion to light and that kind of like getting rid of actually breaking away and running away from that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of has this deep shred with the 80s guitar style that was in there. I'm like, I absolutely love the move here, especially in how the chorus is, because that first half, I'm like, it could be potentially bland. However, you kind of switch up in the second half of the chorus to really bring in a little bit more of a different guitar tone overall, which really, again, brought it back to that full entire meaning of Runaway and just added to the emotion of it. And then when you go back into the second verse after the first chorus, it really transitions well right back into it. So it really did work out well with how it was constructed. When at first you're like, this might not, okay, this definitely works. Yep, this works.
Yeah, because it goes like, and it goes like to another like,
yeah,
you know, vibe. Yeah, that's awesome to hear, man. It's funny because like when you create it, you don't think about any of that, right? Like you're just like, oh, that's like, at least myself, I'm like, what am I gonna do here? I remember like this transition, I didn't know what to do with it. Like the basis was like, let's try this thing, right? And then like it completely, you know, like connected with like the chorus, and like, okay, let's keep going and like create another part of the song. And I think one of my favorite parts is like after the second verse, when the solo like comes in, it's really special because like, whoa, my god, what's gonna happen here? And it's like boom, you know.
yeah. Oh, I can speak to that solo right now if you want me to, because it was interesting, because when you went to that solo, especially after the second chorus, you went with this full like 80s style with the after the second chorus, because it was like that full outro here with the way the drumming was. The guitar also had like an inspiration from, of course, the late great Eddie Van Halen. That's what I got of it, just the way it was shredded in. Honestly, at first I'm like, I'm not sure why this was like, you went like, you know, verse, chorus, and then outro, because I was kind of like, just the way that a lot of songs are constructed, I was expecting a chorus to come in for the third time, and just I was like, that seemed like it's missing. But after I listened to the full entire thing, after I listened to it again, I totally understood the move to really just have that full on outro in there, and I thought it was for continuity purposes, because if you went back to that chorus in the end, what I thought it was like, okay, if you go back to the chorus, then you're bringing back more of that emotion of, you know, you're still stuck in that sense and you're trying to get away from it. However, when you do this full outro thing with it the way it was, it feels like you finally broke off from what was keeping you down when you finally are able to go after what you thought. So just the overall emotion that was really brought out within that, I'm like, this was constructed really trickily good. Like I use trickly. But like it was just, I don't know. I was thrown off by it, but it was a good thrown off, because I'm like, wait a minute, why was this done? What was the emotion that was like being brought out here? And really focusing on them, like, holy shit, you guys constructed this with like something like, we're not going to go with the norm. We're going to just go to a full outro, no third chorus. I'm like, oh, this seems weird. But then when you really look at it deeper, like, oh, this makes sense.
This makes sense. Yeah. Now that you say, it's like as if like the instrumentals are also like saying something, right? Like it's like, oh, here's the message from the instruments, and like, you know, like the band, not only like while I'm singing, it's like, okay, I got out of it, and then it's like time to like break free and be, you know, like wow, and be crazy and do whatever, and then the song pretty much ends.
I've spoken about that plenty of times with friends where it's just like everyone's asking me, why do you like hard rock? Why do you like metal? Why do you like metalcore? I'm like, well, why do you guys like country music so much? I gotta know about this. And I had this conversation with a guy that really doesn't like the kind of music I like. I don't like the music that he likes. But this was something where we both connected on this. And he was talking about country music on this. He said that the reason why he likes so much is because when you listen to lyrics, it tells a story. And that story, and the lyrics really give off the emotion and the vibe of the life that he enjoys. Just that, like you know, dude likes to go fishing, dude likes to go up north, likes to hunt, likes to just do that whole entire like really just like really like descriptive like country kind of thing. And he's like the lyrics really speak to it, and when you listen to the way the instrumentals are constructed, the melodies and everything, it just ends up amplifying that story. And I looked at him like, well, when you take the way I look at it is like when you take a look at something like metalcore. Yeah, you're going to get those like unclean screams in there. But what really drives it all is when you listen to the instrumentals and you listen to the way it's constructed, it's giving off that emotion and it's creating that tangible feeling and that tangible description of a feeling that is really hard to describe, that maybe can be an intangible thing that you're trying to say something. So when I'm trying to be like, oh, what was it like to go through depression? And what was it like to feel overwhelmed by it? I'm like, boom, play this song, because not only are the lyrics that are gonna speak to you, but when you listen to the way the vocal tone is, the patterns, and you listen to the way the instrumentals are toned, everything about it, the way they're played, the pace of them, you're gonna get that full emotion there just by listening to it. So it's something where him and I were like, holy shit, did we just become friends off of that? Yep. Because now there's a total understanding of why we like the music we like, and we don't even like the same music that we like. It just, but we understood it, and that's the thing where it's just that connectiveness to it.
Yep, that's right on, man. It's right on.
Look at me going and like preaching the word of music.
That's amazing. I mean, like as I said, it's just sometimes we like when we're like writing a song, you don't really think about it. It depends, right? Like I go with the flow, whatever. Like I feel like, oh, that's going to work, I just go with it. For example, now that you broke it down, now I understand why like the song, you know, is what it is. I think the bassist has like more knowledge on that. He's more like, you know, oh, we should do like this chorus like once, like one more time, or like whatever. I don't really pay attention to it. I just go like with the whole thing. That's what is magical about like having a band, I think, because like this dude is like a huge what's the name of the band? Periphery fan. Okay. You know, like he loves like metal and like a bunch of like screaming. I like it too, but like not as much as he does. And he knows a lot about like, you know, like construction of the song and whatever. So it kind of guides me through sometimes. But sometimes, some other times, I'm just like, for I Knew, which was like the first one that we released, I was like, that's it. The song is this, and you know, they just go with the flow. But yeah, it's interesting to have like that perspective from people outside of the band.
Yeah. One other thing I've spoken about too is, and I've spoken this to a lot of bands, where it comes to writing songs, it's never force anything. Mm-hmm. It's let the song write itself. If you have a riff you want to work off of, start with that and just let it progress the way it is. If it's like, we got a riff, but we want to make this into more of like a pop punk track, we want to make this more into a heavy metal track or a thrash metal track. No, don't do that. Let the riff speak for itself. Let it construct itself, because then you're going to get the emotion that you want in the song to come out. You're going to let it just flow, and it's going to come out of you. You're not going to force something, and it's not going to feel like it was just like pushed on there. It's going to feel natural, and it's going to have that natural progression that when people went through whatever you're talking about and people can match with that emotion, it's going to feel like that transition that they went through as well. And it's just going to match up really. You're just going to get that connectiveness there.
Yep. That's exactly it, man. I usually don't like to, I don't like to force it at all. I'm just like, you know, I think I saw an interview with Michael Jackson saying that. He's like, just let the song write itself, you know? And that's what happens. Like,
he was smart on that part.
Biggest hits in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty, now when it comes to Runaway, because we did the instrumentals, we did the meaning, there's one other part we do have to do before we go through the overall part of it, and that is your vocals, sir.
My vocals.
So I broke the vocals up.
About them?
Yeah, I broke the vocals up into the verses and into the chorus. We're gonna start out with the verses, and my thought was you followed suit with the instrumentals using more of like a melodic style that mixes more of this pop punk and emo style vocal. And overall, I like this because it matches up both the instrumentation. It gives off the emotion the song really needs, of that like longing for something different, and imagine you're trying to be somewhere else and run away from a certain situation. Plus, using a little bit more of a slightly rougher, clean vocal in the second half of this gives off more of that like boiling over resentment and anger feel that the song needs to really break through with that message, because everyone's gone through that where you kind of wish you were somewhere else and just being stuck in there. There's a building just like a building fire within you, literally. My shirt, fire. Just building it inside you. It gives off this like anger, a little bit more like, especially if you're more of like that relationship kind of standpoint, resentment towards the other person, which builds up that anger and builds up that flame. So using that little bit of a rougher, cleaner vocal in the second half of the verses kind of added to that fuel of the fire, and that really spoke the emotion of just building up what was going to be into the chorus. So I really like that move on this one.
Like, yeah, man, like that's something that when I recorded that song, I remember listening to the guitars, and I was like, because I wanted to do like that, you know, like sort of like raspy sort of sound like while I was singing those parts, but I was like, I don't think that's gonna work. I tried it like at home, like, you know, like doing some vocals here. I'm like, I don't think that's gonna work. But then I was like, I'm gonna save that for the chorus, so like I can just like let it out and be like, yeah, I think it connected really well with the second part as well. There's like two different scenarios, you know, like two different like environments that like you can see yourself in, and like trying to match that with the vocals. I did that like intuitively. So yeah.
And it even comes out in the chorus as well, because you kind of do the same thing here as you did in the second half of those verses, where the focus is much more on that rougher, cleaner style. And in my mind, this really stood out because when you're mixing again that pop punk and emo sound and then bringing that rougher guitar tone in the second half of the chorus, that rougher, cleaner style brings out so much more of that anger and vigor that makes me think like, had you guys been, you know, about 13, 14 years earlier, like one of those MySpace bands back in like 2006, 2007, this song would have been an absolute smash hit based off of the way that worked out on the chorus.
Right. Yeah, man. A lot of people have been telling me that, actually, like, oh, I remember like the 2000s when I listened to you guys. I don't know if it's the way the guitars were, you know, like adjusted, like the way the sound that I got from it. Because when I went to the studio, I was like, I want this sound, right? Like with Jason, which was the guy that like engineered the whole thing. And I think he was trying to like get that sound like 2000s sort of. And one of the things that I don't really like is like super triggered like sounds when you're like, you don't really get the vibe of the band.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that I was telling him, like, dude, just try to make it as natural as possible, like with vocals and everything. I think he did a really good job at that.
Yeah, now don't get me wrong. When I said that, it was just, it's not like, you know, this was like, oh yeah, you guys definitely just went for that kind of sound and it worked out. No,
yeah,
I mean, it's like,
no,
when people are bringing it up, like this reminds me of that is because, again, it's just the way the song was constructed when you use those vocal tones, like those instrumental tones, like with the pop punk style, with the emo style as well. Everyone always just associates them with the 2000s because that's when they were popular. So it's just an association by sound kind of thing. It's not to be like, oh, this is your sound, you're trying to be like one of those bands. It's basically just that, oh no, this reminds me, this brings back the memories of listening to bands like Blink-182. This brings back memories of Sum 41, Fall Out Boy. Brings back, you know, listening back to Taking Back Sunday, or listening to, you know, MCR, just when you hit that one note and all of a sudden it's just like,
yeah, it triggers, right?
If you want to trigger in music, it's the first note from Welcome to Black Parade. That is a trigger note.
MCR, man.
You hear that, you're just like,
Panic at the Disco.
Oh yeah.
I was a huge fan of all those bands. And it kind of shaped my sound too, right? I think like when you put everything together, it's just what I've always listened to. And then there's like the Foo Fighters too. That was, you know, something that kind of like came out of it, I think. I think a friend of mine told me that our sound is like a good mix of like Blink-182 and the Foo Fighters. I was super flattered. I'm like, dude, that's fucking amazing. But yeah, I can see why people would say that. Definitely, especially from this song Runaway. Okay, another little secret, like we are going to release an EP. That's a second. Yeah. that's the second song of the EP, and I think Runaway summarizes like everything that we think of ourselves as a band. Like the sound of this song specifically, that we decided to put the title on the EP like Runway. So it's gonna be name of the EP.
Nice.
Yeah.
And to close with the song Runaway, because again, I got to do my overall thing because I always got like a little bit of an overall.
I love it, man.
Summarize it.
Just go for it. I'm telling you, I want the notes because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna read it through.
Yeah, I'll send you these notes. So this is the overall that I have on it. Overall, This is quite the badass song they have here. Using that pop punk and emo mix here really sets the song out for success in the forefront because the mixture of the sound with more of that 80s deep shredding sound on the guitar, it gives it a lot of life and that specific anger to it that the meaning really needs. And that anger matches up again with the message, and Tico's vocals really do work well here as they work just amp up that rougher, cleaner sound to really give the song the final kick it needs to put it over the top to match emotion needed to express the meaning on the song. I know I'm constantly pushing the meaning on this, but that's because it really works well to match an emotion. So overall, when you really want to summarize it in 2 words, I'm just gonna say this: well done.
Well done. I like that. Awesome, man. I'm really glad that you were able to, like break it down in a way that I don't think I'd be able to at all. And I'm actually like super curious to read it through from the notes.
I mean, pretty much like what I said is pretty much like what the notes all have, but I can send you the notes as well because again, you said you want to read an article or like write an article on. It's like, yeah, you're gonna get this note page. This might be like a page and a half actually, but yeah. But like you're gonna get it to be like, oh well, this is what one guy from Milwaukee who was a podcast thinks about it. And it's rather detailed.
Yeah, very detailed. And I'm really, really excited for people to listen to it too, because like we put this song together, and when we listen to it, this song, like the bassist is #1 fan. He's obsessed with this song. And after it came out, like the master, I was like, holy fuck, that's big. Like that sounds like a big song because like I knew it's really good too. I don't know. There's something about Runaway that kind of like, I don't know, man. There's something about it. I love this song now. And that's why we're like naming the EP like Runaway, right?
Yeah, because like you said, like it really like encompasses a lot of the whole entire sound that the band is gonna have.
Yep.
So,
exactly.
Again, that's gonna when you have the song Runaway as the name of the EP as well, that's what people are going to gravitate towards first, is going to be that song, going to be the titular song on it. So it makes a lot of sense. And for everyone listening, Runaway, that song comes out the day after Thanksgiving. It comes out on Friday, November 27th. Now, again, if you're listening to this podcast on the day it comes out, you're a little bit more than a week out from that. But if you take a look at the video, I mean, just take a look at the bottom of this thing, and you're going to see Runaway available November 27th. And if you, for some reason, forget, but you're following anything with MSOTD Rocks, on the 27th, you're going to see this little Song of the Day feature thing pop up like we always do every day. And you're going to be like, oh, that's Runaway. Yeah. You're not going to get away from it. You're going to listen to this one, guys.
Yeah, I'm really excited for people to listen to and let me know what they think, because when you put a song out, that's the, like, as a musician, want people to listen to it, right? Like, let you know what they think and whatnot. I'm really excited about this one. Really happy that we're here like talking about it and you're able to write such a great review on it, man. I was not expecting that at all.
I should just have this thing with, like, on the podcast, like, expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
or just not that.
Great. Great surprises here. Expect
in-depth analysis, because like even if you looked at like when I do the album reviews for our YouTube channel, it's like, God, I think I did when I did the one for God, what was the last ones I did? When I did the one for Corey Taylor's solo album.
Oh, my amazing one.
My note sheet, just because I went like what I did for Runaway, I did for each song on that album. So there's 14 songs I did that for. And then I do like my rating, what I like about the album, what I dislike about the album, and then my final thought on it. And that document was like 17 pages long. And then for the YouTube video, I put together a script. And it's like 6 pages long. So it's like, shit. I end up putting like 23 pages together.
Do you grade it though? Like, do you say like, oh, this is like a 7 out of 10 or something?
That's what I gave it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I gave CMFT, was 7 out of 10.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
So it's like, usually I'll always give a rating, and it's like, but I always do like the likes and the dislikes, because there's going to be things I like about the album. There's going to be things I dislike about the album. And I want to be completely honest with it. So if it's like an album where it's like I really didn't like it, because I'll use an example. And even though they came out with a new album by the time we released this podcast, the album that came out in 2018 for Bring Me the Horizon, Amo, I really didn't like that one. So I gave that one a low rating. However, like in the like section, like I actually described there's certain things I like about, like I like the song Mantra, but there's a lot of things I didn't care for. But I'm gonna give you both sides of it. And then there's gonna be an album like What the Dead Men Say by Trivium, where I love that. I gave it a 9 out of 10. And I'm like, the like section was long. The dislike section, there was like 2 little tiny things in there, but I wanted to keep, like, again, if it's not a 10 out of 10. Or for me, it's like, if it's not The Suffer and The Witness by Rise Against, I'm going to find something that I'm not going to like about it, even if I absolutely love the album.
Right, yeah. This is like very subjective, right? Like some albums are like tricky because like the way the artist like creates the flow, it's like the way they like imagine that people would like to hear the songs. Sometimes you're just like, oh, I like the third one. I think the third one should be the opening one, and it's very subjective to analyze albums, but I really admire people that can do it like you, man.
Yeah,
because I tried it, but it's not my thing. My thing is just like to create music, I like to listen to music to get inspired by like artists and stuff like that, but like to break it down like in detail, it's a skill, man. It's a skill.
It's a skill that when I started this whole entire thing, I did not have any skill in it. Like the first time I reviewed an album was the first time I put a YouTube video out of an album review. And then it's like slowly but surely as time's gone on, I've changed up the style of it, but now I've gotten a style that I really like with it and I'm really stuck on. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing it because I go in depth. So like I did one for Seven Dust album, and it's like, I liked it. I didn't love it, but I always describe like, there's things I like about it and there's things I don't like about it. And I always describe them and I tell you why. Cause it's like, again, it's subjective. So if people are gonna be like, you didn't like something, but I liked it, so screw you. I'm like, no, I'm giving you all the context you could ever want behind it, so you can understand where my mind is coming from in that moment.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Like some guys just like, but they're like too much of like their personal opinion on it, right? Like, instead of like looking at it as like, neutral way, right? Like I'm not gonna, because you love Rise Against, so like anything that, you know what I'm saying, right? Like anything that sounds like Rise Against, you're gonna be like, okay, I like that,
Yeah, and people are gonna know that. Even like when Rise Against came out with the Black Market album back in 2014, it's like I look at that, I'm like, there were some songs on there, like, I'm gonna be completely honest, like there's some songs that I really didn't care for on that album, and then they came out with Wolves in 2017. I'm like, this is
I love them.
I was like, they're back to their like this like hard punk rock sound,
like Rage Against the Machine sort of thing, right? Like the political.
Yeah, but it's just the way that they create it. It's just the way the lyrics are written from Tim. It's just, and the way it's presented out there. Because one thing they're masters at is having that like fast paced, hard punk rock sound to it. But then Tim's vocals are melodic as all hell over it. So that contrast really works out. Like take a look at their song Broken Dreams Incorporated, which came out back in September. It does that exact same thing. I'm just like, this is nice. Is it something like, do I think it's their best song ever? Nope. Do I like the song? Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Same thing with the Foo Fighters. Sometimes I'm like, not really, like skip it, not because I'm a huge fan of like every single song, man. Like this is not how it works. Like Wasting Light is my favorite album, but after that, I don't think they've been able to like, create like some beautiful piece of like art, like a huge album, like rock album. I'm super curious about this new one, but
yeah, because Wasting Light was awesome. Sonic Highways I thought was okay. I really didn't care that much for Concrete and Gold.
Concrete and Gold was like, oh my god, yeah, like maybe a couple of songs here and there. Like Run is a really good one, and then you have I forgot the name of the other one. Oh my dear, everything's big right now. Gotta get to sleep now. That's it.
I'm trying to see if I can pull up the name of the song.
Sky's a Neighborhood. That's the name of the song.
Sky is a neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a really good song. But yeah, I'm super selective with their stuff too.
Yeah, but then again, that's the honesty part of it, where nobody's perfect. No band is perfect. Like, again, our favorite bands, there's stuff we don't like about them. I had a talk one time with a bunch of people that on a live stream that I do with our fans.
Not every song is gonna be your best song at all. That's just the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, and the question popped up where it was like, okay, name your least favorite song by your favorite band. and immediately like I answered so quickly on what it was.
Which is?
It was their song "Boys No Good" by off their "This Is Noise" EP by Rise Against. I was like, that song was just terrible.
Really?
Yeah, I hated it. But it's like, well, why did you like it? I'm like, it just sounded like it was really rushed together. It just really didn't have like any kind of flow to it. It just really just didn't. I think they made it for like a movie or something, but I'm like, it just didn't really. It just really was not good. However, it's like, whoa, you really actually answered that quick. I'm like, yeah, because it's. I don't think they're like, this perfect band or anything where it's like, oh my God, everything they do is perfect. It's like, no band that does anything is perfect.
Yeah. And the artists know that too, right? Like speaking of the Foo Fighters, like One by One is an album that Dave Grohl doesn't like. He's like, I don't like that album. Isn't it crazy? Like the one that has All My Life.
And Times Like These.
In Times Like These, yeah. I do like that album, but it's funny because like you as an artist try to be as critical as possible, but music sometimes is just so subjective, man. Like you love a song as an artist and you put it on, people are like,
Yeah,
it's like the opposite. It's like I'm not sure about this one. People are like, oh my God, it's the best song.
Yeah, and one thing that's always important about like when it comes to really like being like on that end where it's like, okay, you're reviewing music and you're looking at it. Why I like to go so much in depth again is just because it is subjective. You're getting my thoughts, my opinions on it. I'm going to go as deep as possible into it, but whenever I explain the things I like about the album, I don't like about the album, I'm going to be completely honest with it. And I'll use Seven Dust as the example where I like their like what they did on their last album and then this current one with Blood and Stone, where it was like they went with more of this like polished sound kind of as they matured on. But what I thought kept it going from good to great was because they went with it a lot, and I wish they would have mixed in more of that like rougher sound they had earlier on and really give this more of like a dynamic mix to it. But then it's because I like that rougher sound overall, so I can understand why they went with this like more polished sound consistently. I do like parts of it, but I'm not gonna like all of it. But then again, it's because of what kind of music I like and how I associate with it, and I'm gonna explain that completely. So it's just gonna be like, oh, okay. There's bands where it's like bands I've worked with, and I'm like, I'm not the biggest fan of some of your newer stuff, but I'm going to completely explain why. And it's like, well, thank you for the honest feedback. I'm like, but remember, this is my take. It's subjective. Yeah. And when people
it's based on your experiences as like a listener, and it changes.
And when people are going to watch it, it's going to like watch those reviews and listen. It's going to be like, okay, maybe you're just going to a song you like. I'm going to explain exactly what this song is. And like, okay, you're going to see why you like it. But I'm going to explain maybe why I don't like it. But I'm going to give the context behind it as well, because that's the important part of it.
Yep, exactly.
I think that's a way to put it, especially with the world as well. Just give context, man.
Give context.
Everything we so nicer if
give context. That's important.
It is. And one thing I will say is, as we're gonna bring this one a little bit more to a close because I've got to get going, like doing something like 14 minutes from now, so I want to make sure. Yeah. Plus, we've done an hour and a half, and we've talked about just everything from like the anatomy of a front man to
putting on a great show.
We did a deep dive into Runaway. We know that there's gonna be an EP called Runaway. I'm assuming coming out in 2021.
Yep. I mean, I think we're gonna push it by the end of the year, probably.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to make sure people know about it. So, yeah. And as we close this out, Tico, one thing I always do is I give you the last word, final words, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to plug. This is the time to do it. So the floor is yours once again.
Thanks, man. Thank you for the opportunity. Was a great conversation. A lot of things that I wasn't like expecting. Great surprises. Like the song review and all that. Loved it. If you guys don't know the band yet, it's called the Nerval. You can go and follow us on Spotify. You can just search for the Nerval there. We've released a couple of songs like this year, and as you guys know now, we're gonna be releasing the EP. I also have a Spotify account where I release like some covers, like acoustic covers and like random songs that like I want to release that are not like related to the band, which is like my name, just Tico Nerval. Just look for it, and if you can give us a subscribe on our YouTube channel. I don't know if you've watched it, man, but like we have this music video for I Knew. I don't know if you've watched it. It's hilarious.
I have not, unfortunately.
Yeah, man, it's so funny. If you guys haven't checked it out, I recommend that you go to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Nerval, and then check it out and let me know what you think. And I'm excited to share Runaway with everybody else. And that's it. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for having me here, and thanks for everybody that listened.
And now it's my time to close this out. So everything that Tico just said when it comes to making sure that you're subscribed to them, you're following them on all these different platforms, to make sure that you're doing that so that when Runaway comes out as a single and the EP comes out, you're going to want to find a place where, oh man, where can I find all their stuff, all their social medias, where I can stream their music, anything like that. Well, instead of searching it up, why don't you take a look at the description of this podcast, whether it's on Spotify Podcast, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or the description of the YouTube video. I'm going to have it all there for you, all the links. It's a one-stop shop. All you got to do is tap, click, whatever the hell you got to do, and you got no excuse now because it's all going to be there. So, yeah, and I'm looking forward to when the EP comes out as well. Again, when Runaway comes out on November 27th, if you guys forgot about it, make sure you're subscribed to their stuff, follow their stuff because you'll be notified, and make sure you subscribe to our stuff as well, which is going to be also in the description because it's going to be the song of the day choice that day. You're not going to be able to get away from it. So, yeah. And Tico, this was an incredible conversation. I'm glad you reached out. I'm glad we got to talk about this and really go in depth with a bunch of different things. Not only, again, with the song, but also with the Amia frontman putting on a great show, all that kind of stuff. So we really went deep with some great things. And I don't like to end these with goodbye, mostly because I want to, once this whole entire COVID shit ends, I want to see you play live. I want to see all this stuff. And I want to meet you in person. So this ain't going to be goodbye. No. This is going to be, see you later, man.
See you, brother. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
Bye-bye.
Whoa, folks. That was my interview with Tico from the band The Nerval out of Chicago, Illinois. And let me tell you guys, I love the Chicago music scene. I mean, The Nerval, Chevelle, Smashing Pumpkins, Disturbed, Rise Against. Oh, yeah. So you know this is good. So again, The Nerval song is called Runaway. It is going to come out on November 27th. We are going to be featuring as a Song of the Day feature on that day, November 27th. And their new EP called Runaway is going to come out sometime either end of this year, beginning of next year, and we cannot wait for it. So again, please make sure you're subscribed to all their stuff, following all their stuff. Please subscribe to all our stuff and follow our stuff as well. Again, everything is in the description. So I want to thank you guys for watching and listening to this podcast. It's the Chord Progression Podcast by the MSOTD Rocks or Rock and Roll Live, where we're interviewing all the biggest emerging bands in the scene today. And that's going to be for me today, guys. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one of these episodes with a big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah! Oh.